Hey there and welcome. My name is Tina and I created my business, The Alignment Keys, to help people remember who they really are. I want to say a big thank you for being here. For those of you who watch, subscribe, and especially comment, it is greatly appreciated. If you're new to my channel, please understand these videos are not meant to put the famous on a pedestal or to condemn them in any way. This is an opportunity to look at them as spiritual beings having a human experience. And it gives me the opportunity to showcase one of the keys that I use to get people into alignment with their life, the soul contract. If you would like to know more about the history of the soul contract and how I put the charts together, please watch my short introductory video that I will put a link to in the description box below. I connect with those that cross over energetically to bring through their messages, and so can you. We are all given talents that make this a possibility to connect with our loved ones who have crossed over, are always ready to connect, and they love to send you signs to tell you that they are still supporting you from the other side. You just have to be open to receiving the messages. In today's video, I am going to share with you the soul contract of the great Queen of Rock, the beautiful, dynamic Tina Turner. This beautiful, fiery, vivacious woman lived quite a life, and I am so excited to share with you her soul contract and go over some of her journey, her many accomplishments, her biggest struggles, and who she was at a soul level. Let's pull up her chart, and then I will share some of her story with you. There she is, the beautiful Tina Turner. I love this picture of her. You know, it brings in that little bit of red, her very beautiful image that she always portrayed on stage, a lot of electric energy that she has, really great, a super person that she was. And I really like that picture because I think it really captured her energy and just this joy that she exuded on the stage and through her music and her dancing. So this is what on the left, the soul contract, which sits on the Star of David. This is a sacred geometric symbol, and it is part of how we emanate our reality. And what we have here are the two triangles that make up the Star of David, the physical side of our chart. And then we have this triangle that points to our spiritual side of the chart. And so the numbers from our birth name incorporated around the Star of David, and they add up to bring us these beautiful numbers, which give us our vibrations that create our reality. And then we have specific aspects in each of the categories, whether it be our physical side of the chart or our spiritual side of the chart. And so we all have challenges that we came here to grow from. You can call it our karma. It's our biggest opportunity for growth. And then, of course, we're given qualities, these beautiful talents in both the physical side and the spiritual side. And then we have our drives, and that's kind of what gets us out of bed in the morning. So those would be our goals, things that we're trying to strive for. And notice she has the same goal in her physical drive and her spiritual drive. And then all of the numbers combined together add up to our life purpose. And that's overall what we came here to accomplish and to learn from in this particular incarnation. So the numbers all have meanings. Every number has a negative side of the number or a positive side of the number. We get more of the negative side when it's in karma or challenges, and we get more positive in our talents and a little bit of both in our drives and then our life purpose as well. So again, the numbers can be pulling in positive or negative energy depending on where we are at mentally and emotionally on our journey and how much we've worked through our chart. So she has worked through quite a bit of her chart. So she's a great person to bring through and showcase a soul contract because she's worked through a lot of these numbers. And then over here, I'm going to also bring in her business name because Tina Turner, once she took on that persona, would add another layer of vibration. So you can think of your birth name. So that's your name that is on your birth certificate as the cake of your life. Any other names that you take on, and a lot of actors that I've done have taken on different names, and those bring in a different energy if they're different numbers, or they can just support you if they're the same numbers. Now, she does have sevens here, which is in alignment with her chart. So that was a very supportive energy in her persona. And normally we do see that, how the numbers in the business name align somewhat if they're very successful with their birth certificate name. So I wanted to bring through these numbers. And so I'll be pointing to these numbers as we go through the chart here. So let me tell you a little bit about Tina Turner as we know her from her persona and the interviews and the articles, right? A little bit about her background. So Tina Turner was a singer, songwriter, and actress. She started off as a singer in a band that was created by her former husband, Ike Turner, from the late 1950s through 1976. That was when she divorced Ike and went out solo. It was then that she launched one of the greatest comebacks in music history at the age of 44 with her multi-platinum album, Private Dancer, which that album contained her only #1 song, What's Love Got to Do with It? She soared to international fame and sold more than 100 million records worldwide. In 1988, she set the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest paying audience for a solo performance. She received numerous Grammy Awards, including a Lifetime Achievement Award and a Grammy Hall of Fame induction. She was the first Black artist and first woman to be on the cover of Rolling Stone. She has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, once as part of Ike Turner Band and once as a solo artist. And she also acted in such movies as Mad Max with Mel Gibson and Tommy. And that, ladies and gentlemen, are just some of her highlights. So let's discuss where she came from and how that molded Tina to become this strong, independent woman with these great accomplishments, somebody who now I can showcase through the soul contract and how we can pull off of the energies of these numbers. And then we got to answer some questions. Did all this fame and fortune make her truly happy? Or is there more to her story? What does she wish she would have done differently now that she's on the other side, if anything? So let's talk about Tina's reality, how it manifested, and how that relates to these numbers in her chart. Well, let's see. Tina was born in 1939 in Brownsville, Tennessee. Her birth name, as you can see here, was Anna Mae Bullock. She was the youngest of 3 daughters who actually experienced picking cotton as a young girl in the South. During the war, she was separated from her sisters and made to go live with her strict religious paternal grandparents who were deacons of the Woodlawn Missionary Baptist Church. This was reflected in Tina's challenge 17-8, all of this stuff going on in her childhood, which creates an environment of childhood suppression. And basically, she didn't have any say in her life, where she was to be, and felt very pushed around, shuffled around. This would also reflect the 20-2 in her chart, which is being taught strict religious beliefs. And this is in order to push her to seek other means of spirituality that will come into play later in her life. This time in her life was also tied to her being this dominant 7, and that's when you have more than 4 numbers in your chart, which is about healing the heart and being seen for who she really was. And because she was shuffled around in her childhood, it made her feel that her parents did not love her, and it made her feel that she wasn't wanted. This set her up with some pretty significant self-esteem issues early on in her life. After the war, she was reunited with her family, where they settled for a while in Nutbush, where Tina got her first exposure to singing in the church choir. At the age of 11, her mother unexpectedly left because of the abuse she was suffering from her father. And then her father remarried, and she was once again sent to live, this time with her maternal grandmother, which again put more pressure on that feeling of unworthiness and unwantedness that was coming directly from those 17 challenged 8s, right? She lived with her grandmother until her grandmother passed away And then she went to live with her mother at the age of 16. Now, 1 and 6 add up to 7, and this is where some of the heart healing would start to take place for us. She gets back into touch with her mother. That would also push on this 13-4 in her spiritual talents, because that is all about mothering energy. So as a teenager, she worked a variety of jobs to maintain stability. She never had a lot of money. She was imprinted with having to work hard. So she was a nurse's aide after she graduated from high school. And she was very young when her and her sister started to frequent the nightclubs in St. Louis. Sevens want to be seen and looking for some excitement, this 20-2, which is tied to movement and flexibility, and wanting to start to express herself and get out there and be seen and be heard. And so this was where Tina first saw Ike Turner perform with his band. She was super impressed with his talent, how the band was put together. And then she started to get to know them and started to date the saxophone player in his band, which was Raymond Hill. This is when Tina became pregnant. This is tied to this 13-4 that I mentioned briefly already, which the 4 is tied to possibly manifesting unplanned pregnancies. And why would we manifest something like this? Well, this is about learning how to share unconditionally with others. It's about learning how to trust that everything will be there for you and to trust in God. I have a 13-4 in my chart, and I also had an unplanned pregnancy at a young age because I believe Tina was only 18 at this time. And so it's about learning to trust in the universe and that things will work out. But unfortunately for Tina, as part of her abandonment from her dad and mom splitting up, her mom leaving, being pushed around, which really disempowered her, Raymond also did the same thing, because we usually manifest partners in life that are reflective of what we've known already from our parents. And so he ended up leaving her before the baby was born. And so she ended up being a single mom. This was a pattern of manifestation that I had taken on from that troubled 17-8, that place of unworthiness, and the disempowerment coming also from these very powerful 9s in the chart, which start to play out that you don't really know your own power, so you become this victim of your circumstances. And you struggle also with boundary issues, which we will get a little bit into in that relationship with her and Ike. But because she's a dominant 7, that pushed her to want to be seen. Because she loved singing, she kept pushing on Ike to let her sing with the band. And it wasn't long before she eventually manifested an opportunity for Ike to see her sing. And that was when Ike saw her talent and saw what she had to offer and invited her to sing in the band at that time. And then he gave her that persona, Tina Turner, even though there were some conditions attached to that name as well. I believe he had actually trademarked it to himself because he had a history of pushing people away. He would be what I considered a narcissistic person based off of his traumatic childhood, and he would push everybody away through his very, very controlling personality and abusive nature. And so he trademarked Tina Turner because he really felt in the back of his mind that Tina would eventually leave him, as others had, and he wanted to be able to keep that name and just give it to somebody else. So we know that didn't work out for him. But again, that was, like I said, tied to the 7s, because the 7s, even though they want to be seen, initially they take on these personas because it gives them the confidence to come out as someone else, because they're not really ready to be seen at an authentic level yet. And so Tina Turner became the persona. And now Tina, being a dominant 7, would also need to learn how to manage wanting to control and wanting to dominate others, because with the 7s, it's about learning to be a team player, learning to facilitate groups, learning how to be part of the group. And I thought that she did a pretty good job of that in her lifetime, being able to facilitate rather than just control people. So she learned a lot of lessons by being in the band with Ike. People that come into her life, it's to learn something from them. And so there was a lot she gained from Ike. And you can see, like I said, in the sevens in her business name was a perfect match. This number also makes you very magnetic. It makes you very well liked and popular. And that was very important to her success because it draws people to you through the heart. And the heart is the most powerful organ we have. We all think it's the brain, but the heart, if you can connect your brain and your heart, that is the most powerful energy anybody can exude. So eventually they did begin an intimate relationship, her and Ike. And this was part of that repeating pattern coming through her parents, because once we leave our parents, we're still have a lot of unresolved issues from our time with them. And so we manifest partners to help us to work through those issues. They did eventually get married. However, this was a very dark and troubled relationship and mimicked, like I had talked about, her parents' relationship and the one she knew the best. Her dad was very controlling. Ike was very controlling. He controlled the money, the decisions, and he was very abusive physically and emotionally. And these were something that he admitted to as well. Tina is not looking at this from a victim perspective, and she did not later in her life. But I always tried to minimize the abuse of Tina. We do not minimize that. Once somebody is this abusive in a relationship, that breaks the soul contract you have with that person and is meant for you to walk away from that. And Tina did. And that is tied to her karmic or challenged eights, because that's about learning to let go of those deep emotional attachments to others, especially the ones that no longer serve you. Kudos to anybody with a karmic challenged eight that can do that. That is the lesson that you came here to learn, and she did do that. She ended up having another son with Ike, and he had two sons from another relationship as well. Now, the nines were tied to integrity and ethics. And so she did start this relationship with Ike, going under fences. Ike was in another relationship. So it wasn't the best thing that she came into this relationship. She didn't come in with a lot of integrity, but she learned a lot from it and she left with integrity. And we'll get into that more because that's really what these powerful nines are all about here. She has this beautiful mothering energies. This was about learning how to be a good mother to your children, to other people's children, and yourself. And she did adopt Ike's two sons. So that comes from this mothering energy, this very beautiful feminine energy that she had. And remember, feminine energy isn't weak energy. And that was something that she could exude a lot of. But what she also needed to learn, and we all do to a certain extent, is learn how to mother ourselves, how to take care of ourselves, how to parent ourselves, especially when you have struggle with your parents. And so we need to learn how to become these independent beings, forgive and understand our parents, and be able to grow from it. The relationship with Ike struggled, as we all know, or anybody who knows about Tina, because Ike actually is very jealous of her popularity because of her magnetic sevens. And she was very well liked. These eights give her this ability to fit into society. And so she could, oh my gosh, she just exuded this confidence. And he was extremely socially awkward, actually. And that was very apparent in many of the interviews where he needed Tina to her ability to express herself. And he could only do that if he practiced something. And that's very typical of somebody who has a narcissistic personality disorder, is they will have a lot of social awkwardness. Not all of them, but that can be a red flag if you are in a relationship with somebody and they exude this very social awkwardness, unless it's something that's very rehearsed. So when he would rehearse in the band and sing and stuff, he had his act together. And where he struggled was in those interviews. Now, Tina loved the interviews because this was her getting to express herself like she couldn't from childhood. And she was loving that. She loved being front and center and talking, and this is called dragon energy, that fiery, wonderful, showy energy that she had. It was just a beautiful combination she had here. She also had these beautiful 20-2 in her talents and qualities. And this is, see that flexible symbol there? This is all about her great movement that she had, and it was her most precious talent. it gave her that great dancing ability and the flowing energy that she exuded on stage. So, she came into her expressive abilities through her singing. The fives in her business name started to really come through because that was tied to her singing ability and being able to speak her truth, because fives are tied to the speech. This would also mean that truth became very important, the words and the songs. And so the songs that they were doing that meant something to Tina, where she could really open her heart and express herself, that would have a lot more strength in them from that five. So that was a really good foundation. This is also tied to freedom, and that would push on her being in this very difficult relationship. Just a wonderful energy for her to have, because this is all about her coming from the spiritual realm and manifesting herself bigly in a physical way. And it was no wonder when she did connect with her heart and those songs and was able to express, and then her movement, how she was able to connect. She's got an 8 here, to connect with the mainstream society. And they had a lot of success because that's 8s connecting at a very emotional level. People are drawn to that. These are artists who do very well because they're able to open up their hearts and connect at an emotional level. And what she was getting back was the love and the energy back from the audience, which was helping to heal that very damaged heart from her childhood. And then they came out with quite a few really great albums, and they won quite a few awards. And she actually had a solo album, even though she was with Ike at that time. She still was tied into the relationship, so the energy wasn't very successful, because it wouldn't be something Ike would support for her. Again, she was pushing the boundaries with him, because again, 8s are, you need boundaries, 5s are tied to boundaries, and her 9 is tied to pushing those boundaries, that somebody's trying to keep you in this box. She also at this time was branching out into 7s make great actors. I've mentioned this in other celebrities charts as well, because they're really great at changing their expressions and getting in touch with these different personas and being able to express themselves. So she did the rock opera film Tommy, and she did a lot of TV special guest appearances. So that was her drawing off of all of this energy and learning how powerful she was and what an effect she was starting to have on people. So they had reached a level of fame and success that most performers just dream about, right? I mean, they had everything. And then what was going on behind the scenes is Ike's addiction to cocaine was getting more and more severe. So his behavior was starting to get more erratic. And so then he was having more violent outbursts because of that pressure of fame and trying to uphold this image that he was creating for himself. He eventually had this, I've said it before in the Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito video about this narcissistic collapse that eventually happens with people that have a more severe narcissistic personality disorder, because they self-sabotage themselves. And so he pushed Tina away with abuse. He ended up in jail at one point. And again, this was a pivotal time for Tina, because she also ended up contemplating suicide as she was struggling with the abuse of the relationship. And it's exhausting when you're trying to put up this front all the time and give this image that everything is okay. And so because this 2 in her chart here, even though it's in her talents, again, we can get some of the negative side of this. This is the spring here. And so it's about regulating your emotions. And of course, she would have the high highs with the success, but then she would have to come down, and then there would be some low lows. We have to understand that our emotions ebb and flow, and that's very natural. And so we have to also understand that when we have these deep lows, sometimes referred to as the dark night of the soul, it's really a transitional period of the ego. And so the ego feels like it's dying, but it's really an old self that is no longer serving us. It's about embracing the birth of the new self. And if we were taught to understand that these low points in our life are there to serve a purpose and are very normal, and they're just trying to help us shed that outdated self and bring forward the new, We would see much less of people succumbing to suicide if they really understand what that was trying to tell us. What was really pivotal for Tina was her introduction into Buddhism. She did some chanting. I'm going to link some of her spiritual videos that she did in the description box below, because she did end up working through quite a bit of the spiritual side of her chart. And it was just wonderful work that she did. And so I actually encouraged that of her as well. So I found that very interesting. Her son also encouraged her. And so she did really start to branch out. The 20-2 we talked about earlier. Remember, her grandparents indoctrinated her with more strict religious viewings from Christianity. And Buddhism is about finding inner peace and the inner self and the importance of that. And so this is where Tina's healing journey really began. That was about her exploring other spiritual modalities. This is where she started to change her vibration and started waking her up to what really was going on in her life. The 7 sometimes keeps you in dreamland, but then the 8s, it gives you this grounding, great grounding ability so that you can kind of see what's real. You're out of the dreamland, you're starting to see what's real, and then you can make really good decisions. And this is where it started to change. So once somebody in a relationship starts changing their vibration and the other person is not, things actually began to heat up, and it did for her. So it took a few years of her getting centered in self, starting to find that inner peace and getting out of this. The 20-2 can have some conflict energy as well. In 1976, just 4 days, we've got this 4 here, before she was to sign a major television deal with CBS, her and Ike went into a violent narcissistic rage, and this time Tina had had enough and she fled. She was done putting up with the negative side of that 13-4. The negative side is evading your deepest needs and neglecting yourself. This was the time to start mothering herself and bringing herself back into balance regardless of the consequences. Trusting, the 4s, remember, trusting in God that everything will be there and it will all work out. It was time for her to take her power back, to quit allowing someone to have dominance over you, which comes from the 17-8. Takes back this boundary issues and the victim consciousness that the negative side of the 9 can bring in. And then it gets her to start pushing into her life purpose, which is to take her power back with great integrity. And this was a start. But it wasn't going to be easy. Just because you make these decisions and you start making little steps, it gets a little harder initially. So you have to continue to push forward. So there would be more challenges for her to work through, as Ike ended up sending the 4 kids to live with her to support. And she found out what a mess their finances actually were in, even though they had all this money. Ike was spending a lot on material things and drugs. She continued to work hard over the next 6 years. This is in abilities here. She went touring. She did whatever she could because she had to settle lawsuits for the concerts that they had to cancel, and Ike was refusing to pay for a lot of that. So she took care of that. She had to borrow money to stay in business. There was one time she even did take some food stamps to get her through. She had to pay off an IRS debt that was incurred because of Ike's control. And she, of course, needed to get that solo career off the ground. So she had a lot going on. But you know what? She was starting to trust in her own power and who she was. She surrounded herself with the right people. She wants to say how important that was. She weeded the garden. She kept one of the managers that was part of Ike and her band, a woman who supported her, knew the business, could help her keep her solo career going. The things that she liked that were successful when she was in the Ike's band, keep that part of it, and then branch out into more creativity. So that's what the 6s are. It's about being more creative, coming into your own creativity. And so she was doing that. She continued her spiritual practice. And of course, her singing career was the only thing she wanted to do. That was how she was connecting with others and continually healing that heart. So she dug in and she took every opportunity that came her way. That's another important thing for people who want success, is to make sure that you're taking the opportunities as they present themselves. She never thought she was too big to take something. She worked with others if that was required of her, really balancing out that controlling feature of the sevens, learning how to work with whoever and being a team player. She worked with Cher, this great thing on Saturday Night Live with Rod Stewart. And I mean, that was really huge. You know, she wasn't like, oh, I'm too good for all that. She knew partnering with people, what she needed to do to be successful. And she just trusted, right? She just trusted it would come, and she just did the work. And that's what she wants people to know. It's not about the fame and the fortune and the accolades. It's just doing the work every day. If you love it, everything will come. All the abundance will come. Just take those steps, love what you're doing. And if you don't, find a way to surrender to it and start changing your vibration. So she continued to tour internationally, and she kept putting out albums, signed a deal with Capitol Records. And within 2 weeks, here's that beautiful two, which again is tied to this flexibility, getting in there, exploring new opportunities. And then at the age of 44, which here's her four here, that radiation of spirit, and add that up together, 4 and 4 make 8. She put out her best-selling album, Private Dancer, that beautiful dancing energy. This is what catapulted her to superstardom, especially internationally. She was officially on her way and couldn't be stopped. She had fully stepped into her power, and there was nothing but success and awards after this. And because she was feeling strong and more centered in herself, it was the perfect time to manifest that perfect partner. And in 1986, the great love of her life showed up, Mr. Erwin Bach. This is the person who would stay together with her for the rest of her life, where she could continue working on healing that heart of hers that had been so shattered early in her years and through her relationship with Ike, who she did love very much. But again, she had taken on the belief she was unlovable from all of those years of feeling pushed out as a child. And it took Erwin 27 years, the 2 and the 7 add up to 9. You see the 2 here and the 7 here, and that adds up to her 9, to convince her of his true love. And they did actually get married. So Tina stated of Erwin, he shows me that true love doesn't require the dimming of my light so that he can shine. On the contrary, we are the light of each other's lives, and we want to shine as bright as we can together. Of course, there will still be hard times. Losing her son in 2018 to suicide was incredibly painful for Tina. And because she had moved overseas and she felt a little bit estranged from her children, she carried a little bit of guilt from that as well. She also suffered from several illnesses throughout her life. From those years of neglecting the karmic 8 struggle to learn how to take care of the body. So she neglected herself. So 13-4 can bring in that we talked about earlier. Self-neglecting, not mothering yourself. She had very, very high blood pressure that she never had treated, which is tied to the heart again. And she never addressed it, took a toll on her kidneys. And the spiritual thing tied to the kidneys that I wanted to bring up is that's where we process all of our poisons, our toxins. And she just had a lot of that to process in her life, which again took its toll on Tina as well. But Erwin stepped up to the plate and he gave her one of his kidneys. And she ended up living another 6 years because of Erwin doing that. That's true love there. And so then she started to really believe that Erwin loved her. And she ended up having another son passing away. I think it was just months before she died. Even though that was a very sad moment for her, she was able to, through her faith, understand and manage the pain much better. She had a much better understanding of what the other side is all about. Now, Tina passed away at the age of 83. 8 and 3 add up to 11, which is a master number. and indicates new beginnings for her on the other side. Now, I do want to talk a little bit more about her spiritual side of the chart. And this was where Tina learned how to, again, she had that in her physical drives, learning how to facilitate groups, bring people together to unite. She did it in a physical way through her music. And so she started to do it on her spiritual side, bringing uplifting spiritual music and chanting tied to her Buddhist and Christian beliefs and bringing the two together, which was tied again to the 20-2, seeking out other means of spirituality, and the 13-4, which is integrating this divine mothering feminine aspect of God. And so she did that through her work in charity projects, especially tied to children. That's tied to that number here. And is reflective of the unity consciousness energies, something that is becoming more prevalent as we go into the Aquarian age. She also wrote 4 books tied to this aspect of speech, which is where, again, her songwriting came in and her writing books comes in through this 5 here. And 5 is also, I didn't mention earlier, is pioneer energies. And so she was a pioneer in her own right into, if I had to say what she did pioneer wise, it would be, she was always labeled as an R&B artist, and she was always rock and roll, and she was able to pioneer and break that mold for others to be able to be seen as something other than what people are trying to keep you in that box. We want to break out of those boxes in these incarnations. And so the 4 books that she wrote were her life story, her love story, Happiness Becomes You, a guide to changing your life for good. And her final book was Tina Turner, That's My Life. Now, for the most part, Tina became much more at peace with herself. 20-2 is finding that inner peace and letting go of the constant need to work and to prove herself, that she didn't need the adoration from others. She could get that by mothering herself and through her relationship with Erwin. She enjoyed living abroad because even though she was famous, people allowed her the freedom, that's important to 5s, to be out in public without too much of a fuss. As I most often hear from those that cross over to the other side, they wouldn't change anything. Everything was an opportunity for growth in Tina's eyes, even her relationship with Ike. As I stated earlier, her life's purpose was to take her power back with integrity. And that's what she did. She was always sure to give Ike credit for the things that he helped her with, but it was also very important to speak the truth about the relationship. She may have received some criticism from those that wanted to see a reunion with Ike and felt that Tina somehow owed Ike for that. But it's very important on these life's journeys when you have 8s and challenges that you learn how to let go of that relationship that was no longer serving you completely. She completely understood that forgiveness is important, but that doesn't mean you bring back the poisoned apple into your life that would have caused much conflict with her and her inner peace. And that was something that became much too important for her to even toy with. And I would agree with her on that point entirely. And we can learn a great deal from how she handled doing what was best for her and not compromising her own needs to the pressure from others. To answer the question if fame and fortune made her happy, she would say it gave her the ability to afford the freedom to do her inner work and helped her to fulfill the spiritual side of her chart. This pushed her to focus on what true inner peace is. And happiness is fleeting, she wants us to know, but peace is pure tranquility. She was completely at peace and ready when she did transition over to the other side. Now we're going to pull a few oracle cards to see what she would like to share with you guys. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we're going to just pull a few cards here to see what she would like to share with you guys. And I'm getting Work Your Light here. And I'm getting Share Your Voice, Come Out of the Cave. Persecution, expression. What a beautiful card about learning how to come out of the cave. This actually looks like Tina in this picture. I don't know if you guys can get a really clear, very amazing. We're looking at the pyramid, which is the soul contract, the spiritual side of the chart. But I do want to read here. I've never had this card come out. And I want to read what this is. You are being called to share your voice, perhaps by speaking up in a relationship or through writing, speaking, singing, or some other form of creative expression. We each hold a truth deep within us that longs to be expressed, sculpted for lifetimes. The voice of your soul is like no other. It carries with it wisdom that can only be gained through soul history and growth. By remembering, tapping into, and expressing this unique tone, we not only heal ourselves and we also heal the planet at large. And that's why she did chanting, why she had that very unique voice as well. When you share your voice, you unlock something in the universe and call a missing piece of yourself home. Your individual voice is the most powerful sound current on the planet. If you have kept your soul's voice silenced or held back, chanting or singing could be a truly life-saving change for you, just like it was for her. I love that she's bringing this through. As we shed the layers of our personality and start letting our unique soul speak through us, we discover that we actually have a very clear message that longs to be shared. The more we speak it, the clearer it gets. There has never been a better time in history than right now to rise up, speak your truth, and share your soul's voice. If you feel fearful, know that you are not alone and that the world needs your unique tone in order to harmonize. As we each rise up and share our song, we make it easier for the next person to do the same. Thank you, Tina, for that wonderful message. And it aligns so much with who she was and what she started to do in her spiritual journey here. So the next thing I'm getting to is the elemental oracle. And AIDS is, she had that in her challenged position, which is about learning to ground. Oh, you guys aren't going to believe this. So what comes out for the elementals is, again, the voice. You can't make this up. Singing, speaking your word. Words are so powerful. And sometimes there's a lot of conflicting information out there that your word, people shouldn't take words so personally and all of that stuff. But I want you to understand that words, and they have resonance, they have a vibration. So it is important, the words that you use. So I'm definitely contradicting people that are preaching that, because again, you can see she's coming out of the horn. If you think of those old days when they had the horns and just all of the music that was blasting that bring people together. What wonderful messages. I'm also going to pull a tarot card. I have this beautiful deck from David Bowie, a gentleman who worked with David Bowie, put this Starman deck together. And so I have the Five of Swords coming out, and that is all about conflict. The Five of Swords it's a conflict energy. Again, eliminating people in your life that you have these huge conflicts with, because it doesn't drive peace, and it is meant for you to walk away from that. It's meant for you to find your life. You can see here is in cryptic, but it's got all these dead bodies and stuff here. It's let all that go. Just all these old selves dying off. Just let that go and start. You can see the red energy. It's the one thing I liked about her lipstick, and that red, knowing your power. Red is the root chakra, knowing your strength, and then moving up into these higher realms here, which is the Star of David. And getting rid of all of that conflicting energy that's keeping you trapped in that root chakra and keeping you from really expressing who you are as a person. So yeah, Five of Swords, another wonderful energy for her too. Now we're going to go to the mermaid deck. I really like this. She's really coming through strong. She is a powerful, powerful being. There's no doubt as to, oh, and here's the other thing is you don't have to do everything alone. She's coming through this loud and clear. Ask for help. We suffer too much in silence. She did not do this alone, and she wants you to understand this. She had people backing her up. Some of the ladies she worked with on a day-to-day basis that were supporting her. And again, like I said, her business manager, she had people that were supporting her. She did not do it on her own. She had people that lent her money, people that once she made the decision, once people know you're really going to change, because the issue can be is asking for help and then going back to the same situation. And we see that with a lot of relationships and not walking away from it. You ask for help, you get some help, but then you go back and then you get stuck again. And so it's really important to set that intention and ask for help, take the help, but then you have to do your part. It's not staying in victim consciousness. It's okay. We all were victims at one time or another, but it's not meant for you to stay there. We get there because there's something for us to learn from that. And here is the 4 energy in her chart that's coming through, and that's about your higher power. So this is about trusting that everything will be there for you. There is a higher power. There is somebody supporting you on the other side. You don't have to have loads and loads of friends. You can do so much just by trusting and following your guides, because they will show you the way. And you can see here that the key for her was unlocking her third eye through the chanting, raising her vibration. Everybody has different things that work from them, you know, depending on their contract. For her, that was tied to the speech, that 5 in her business name, and the elementals, and her voice was very important. So chanting was very clearing for her. It was clearing a lot of trauma. This is what we talk about in the alignment keys, you know, touching with your third eye, getting the direction and the guidance, and listening, grounding yourself, learning what grounding even means, being present, not being in your head playing all those negative victim, oh, what someone said to you yesterday, all the abuse you suffered. It's not about living that every day. It's learning to let go of that, not putting, but discerning future when you meet somebody and you're getting the red flags. Hey, I'm listening this time, universe. I know there's the right person out there for me. I'm not going to just, because I'm so afraid of being alone, I'm not going to just jump in with somebody who isn't of my highest good. And so it's listening to that higher power. Oh, she's just coming through super, super, super strong. I got 2 more cards we're going to do here. I'm actually getting warm because I can really feel her energy. It is coming through hot and fiery. She has a lot to say. Oh, yeah. And this is the other pivotal key for her. She wants to bring through to you. I'm telling you, she was a very, very high level being. She's bringing through Master Jesus right now. And this is tied to forgiveness. Now, she could not have moved on if she did not forgive her past, regardless of it was Ike, her parents. So you are on the path of light, love, and forgiveness. Father healing is possible at this time. So this is healing from the father. So this was that masculine side in her chart. Her dad was very abusive. She was in that abusive relationship with Ike, and she was able to heal that. It's about healing our masculine and feminine side within. Once she healed enough and became more whole, she attracted a partner who was more whole and balanced more in his expression. And so that was all tied to forgiveness. Beautiful, beautiful messages, Tina. Thank you. Or Anna May. She likes Tina. She liked that name. That's my name too. From one Tina to another. And then, so she's saying, here is the 10, which is about new beginnings. 10 can be letting go of those burdens, can be an end of a karmic cycle. And so she's saying, new dawn, welcome back. Welcome back to who you really are. 10s are all tied to self-mastery. So here is the path and going back home to who you really are. And so that's what she's doing. So she does want me to read, because this is tied to the Archangel Metatron Self-Mastery book by Amanda Ellis. And that is also tied to the sacred geometry, Metatron is, and that's that Star of David that I always bring up in the soul contract. So let's see what number 10, which is our final self-mastery lesson here. So this is what Tina Turner has to say for us. New dawn, welcome back. The journey has been long and the challenge is hard, but you can come now to the end of these difficulties ready to start anew. You may have thought you never would reach this place, even now finding it hard to truly believe the darker days are behind you. You may have struggled and have lost faith during these times, yet you were always able to keep going, persevering and believing in better times ahead. A new dawn is birthed when we come out of a tunnel of our own darkness into a new landscape. Like I said, the dark night of the soul. Any of you going through that now, there is a new dawn ahead. Often it can be a journey away from a dark night of the soul experience back to a healed version of ourselves. It takes courage to take the first steps out of the tunnel into an unknown world. This is where Metatron helps. The light can be blinding after being in the darkness for so long. It takes adjustment for all of our senses to get used to a new reality. Standing on this precipice of a new dawn, and just appreciate for a moment all you have been through and all you survived, with the knowledge that you are stronger as a result. The path ahead is now a blank page that you have earned, a page on which you can write your own story and destiny. For now, just keep focused on the sunrise ahead, signifying a new day and a new start. The sun's beauty and reflected rays bring warmth where they are needed and lift your spirits to see new possibilities. The dream that was once a far-off vision is now closer than you ever thought possible. Allow the healing from the bright light to bathe your body, mind, and soul. It has been so long since you truly felt this level of light within and around you. Relax. You are not supposed to see the whole new story yet, which is why the landscape is bare. In time, you will add the main characters and themes that you want to enjoy and work with in this new world. Hang on, everyone. It's coming for all of us. There will be some behavior and maybe certain people that you have had to symbolically or physically leave behind to get to this new place. That is okay. Look toward the horizon. You cannot yet see who will appear over it or what surprises await you. Yet look at the sunlight and feel the warmth and love that is here. This new journey is one to be savored and experienced in all its glory. This is a friendly place, a universe that embraces the new you and all you truly came here to be. Welcome back to the light. And so Tina wants to say, what does love have to do with it? Everything. And so with that, I just have goosebumps. What a wonderful reading with her. I'm just so amazed and touched that she was able to come through and share all of these messages with us and share her energy with us. So hopefully you're feeling it too in your area, because it's really something special. So please take care. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.